Hello and welcome back. You're watching Parry This. So today we are going to be looking at another famous historical figure from the Crusades, and this time it's Robert Curthose, the Duke of Normandy. This one will not be one of my Heroes of the First Crusade videos. This man is famous alright, but most historians agree the title hero goes a bit too far for Robert II of Normandy. So let's just dive on in and learn everything there is to know about this Duke. Robert Curthose, also known as Robert II, was born around 1051 and succeeded his father, William the Conqueror, as Duke of Normandy in 1087, and would reign there as Duke until 1106. He would also be remembered as an unsuccessful claimant to the throne of England. Interestingly, his name, Curthose, actually is a nickname with origins to the Norman French word Carthus, which translates into short stockings, and this nickname was apparently given to him by his father, William the Conqueror. According to the chroniclers William of Malmesbury and Orderic Vitalis, William the Conqueror had also derisively called Robert Brevis Acria, which translates into short boot, which I guess was pretty savage back in the day. To briefly summarize this historical character, the eldest son of William the Conqueror, Robert's reign as Duke is noted for the discord with his brothers, William II and Henry I in England. Robert mortgaged his duchy to finance his participation in the First Crusade, where he was an important crusader commander. Eventually, his disagreements with Henry I led to his death in captivity and the absorption of Normandy as a possession of England. So you can blame Robert II for ending the distinguished legacy of Rollo the Great. As a child, he was betrothed to Margaret, the heiress of Maine, but she died before they could wed, and Robert did not marry until his late 40s. In his youth, he was reported to be courageous and skillful in military exercises. He was, however, also prone to laziness and weakness of character that discontented nobles and the King of France exploited to stir discord with his father, William. He was unsatisfied with the share of power allotted to him and quarreled with his father and brothers fiercely. In 1063, his father made him the Count of Maine in view of his engagement to Margaret, and Robert may have had independent rule in Maine. The county remained under Norman control until 1069, when the county revolted and reverted to Hugh V of Maine. In 1077, Robert instigated his first insurrection against his father, as the result of a prank played by his younger brothers, William, Rufus, and Henry, who had dumped a full chamber pot over his head. Robert was enraged and, urged on by his companions, started a brawl with his brothers that was only interrupted by the intercession of their father. Feeling that his dignity was wounded, Robert was further angered when King William failed to punish his brothers. The next day, Robert and his followers attempted to seize the castle of Rouen. The siege failed, but when King William ordered their arrest, Robert and his companions took refuge with Hugh of Châteauneuf en Thimeris. They were forced to flee again when King William attacked their base in Remillard. Robert then fled to Flanders to the court of his uncle Robert I, Count of Flanders, before plundering the country of the Vexin and causing such mayhem that his father, King William, allied himself with King Philip I of France to stop his rebellious son. Relations were not helped when King William discovered that his wife, Robert's mother, Queen Matilda, was secretly sending her son Robert money. At a battle in January 1079, Robert unhorsed King William in combat and succeeded in wounding him, stopping his attack only when he recognized his father's voice. Humiliated, King William cursed his son. King William then raised the siege and returned to Rouen. At Easter of 1080, father and son were reunited by the efforts of Queen Matilda, and a truce lasted until she died in 1083. Robert seems to have left court soon after the death of his mother and spent several years traveling throughout France, Germany, and Flanders. He visited Italy seeking the hand of the great heiress Matilda of Tuscany, who was born around 1046, but he was unsuccessful in his courting attempts. During this period, as a wandering knight, Robert sired several illegitimate children. His son, Richard, seems to have spent much of his life at the royal court of his uncle William Rufus. This Richard was killed in a hunting accident in the New Forest in 1099, as was his uncle, King William Rufus, the next year. An illegitimate daughter was later married to Helias of St. Sans. In 1087, William the Conqueror died of wounds suffered from a riding accident during a siege of Mantes. At his death, he reportedly wanted to disinherit his eldest son, but was persuaded to divide the Norman dominions between his two eldest sons. To Robert he granted the Duchy of Normandy, and to William Rufus he granted the Kingdom of England. The youngest son, Henry, was given money to buy land. Of the two elder sons, Robert was considered to be much the weaker, and was generally preferred by the nobles who held lands on both sides of the English Channel, since they could more easily circumvent his authority. At the time of their father's death, the two brothers made an agreement to be each other's heir. However, this peace lasted less than a year when barons joined with Robert to displace Rufus in the rebellion of 1088. It was not a success, in part because Robert never showed up to support the English rebels. Robert took as his close advisor Ranulph Flambard, who had previously been a close advisor to his father. Flambard later became an astute but much disliked financial advisor to William Rufus until the latter's death in 1100. In 1096, Robert formed an army and left for the Holy Land on the First Crusade. At the time of his departure, he was reportedly so poor that he often had to stay in bed for lack of clothes. To raise money for the crusade, he mortgaged his duchy to his brother William for a sum of 10,000 marks. When William II died on the 2nd of August 1100, Robert was on his return journey from the Crusade, and was about to marry a wealthy young bride to raise funds to buy back his duchy. As a result of Robert's absence, his brother Henry was able to seize the crown of England for himself. Upon his return, Robert, urged by Flambard and several Anglo-Norman barons, claimed the English crown on the basis of the short-lived agreement of 1087, and in 1101 he led another invasion to oust his brother Henry. He landed at Portsmouth with his army. But the lack of popular support among the English, as well as Robert's own mishandling of the invasion tactics, enabled Henry to resist the invasion. Robert was forced by diplomacy to renounce his claim to the English throne in the Treaty of Ulton. It is said that Robert was a brilliant field commander, but a terrible strategist in the First Crusade. In 1105, however, Robert's continual stirring of discord with his brother in England, as well as civil disorder in Normandy, itself prompted Henry to invade Normandy. Orderic reports on an incident at Easter of 1105 when Robert was supposed to hear a sermon by the venerable Serlo, Bishop of Siez. Robert spent the night before sporting with harlots and jesters, and while he lay in bed sleeping off his drunkenness, his unworthy friends stole his clothes. He awoke to find himself naked and had to remain in bed and missed the sermon. In 1106, Henry defeated Robert's army decisively at the Battle of Tichenbray, and claimed Normandy as a possession of the English crown, a situation that endured for almost a century. Captured after the battle, Robert was imprisoned in Devizes Castle for 20 years before being moved to Cardiff. In 1134, Robert died in Cardiff Castle in his early 80s. Robert Curthose, sometimes Duke of Normandy, eldest son of the Conqueror, was buried in the Abbey Church of St. Peter in Gloucester. The exact place of his burial is difficult to establish. Legend states that he requested to be buried before the high altar, his effigy carved in a bog oak. However, lies on a mortuary chest decorated with the attributed arms of the 9 worthies, missing one, Joshua, and replaced with the arms of Edward the Confessor. The effigy dates from about 100 years after his death, and the mortuary chest much later. The church subsequently has become Gloucester Cathedral. So just as a quick recap to sum up everything I've just said, Robert was recognized in boyhood as his father's successor in Normandy. Nevertheless, he twice rebelled against his father, first in 1077 and 78, and then in 1082 to 1083, and was in exile in Italy until he returned as duke on his father's death in 1087. He was totally unable to control his rebellious vassals or to establish a central authority in Normandy. In 1091, Robert's younger brother, King William II of England, invaded Normandy and compelled Robert to yield 2 counties. William attacked again in 1094, and when a peace was made that gave him control of Normandy in return for money, Robert joined the First Crusade. He fought at Dorylaeum in 1097, and was at the capture of Jerusalem in 1099. His courageous leadership contributed to the victory at Ascalon in 1099. When Robert's youngest brother, Henry I, succeeded William as King of England in 1100, Robert was in Italy. He hastened back to invade England, with unimpressive results, and Henry in turn invaded Normandy from 1105 to 1106. He was captured at the Battle of Tichenbray on September 28, 1106. Robert spent the rest of his life as a prisoner, dying in Cardiff Castle. So that's really all there is to say about Robert II Curthose, Duke of Normandy, leader of the First Crusade, and scourge of Rollo's legacy. Hard to believe that someone as distinguished as William the Conqueror could produce this as the fruit of his loins. But hey, strong men make good times, and good times make weak men. so I guess it shouldn't really be that surprising. And that's all I have to say today, so I hope you liked this video, and I hope you found it educational and interesting. But in any case, thanks for watching, and have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.